Welcome to the Braver Angels podcast, a new way of talking politics. I'm your host for today, David Lapp, Director of the Working People's Project at Braver Angels. I'm recording this podcast today from my home in South Lebanon, Ohio, and I'm joined today by two neighbors. Just down the street is Jason Clark, a stay-at-home father of three children, and also Lance Nickol, a utility locator and father of five. And until recently, Lance just lived a couple doors down from me and now lives in Westchester, Ohio, just a couple towns away. So Jason, Lance, we're all basically neighbors here today, and good to be with you. I invited you here because there has been and there's going to continue to be a lot of discussion in the media about the state of the working class in America today. And you both either have or do hold working class blue-collar jobs. And I know from separate conversations with you both that you've thought a lot about this issue. And I also know that you come at this conversation from different starting political points. Jason, you're a self-described progressive independent who admires Bernie Sanders, and Lance, you're a strong Trump supporter. So we've got our differences, but you also might see something similarly. So I thought it would be interesting for us to all talk and see where this conversation goes. So welcome to you both, Jason and Lance.
Thank you.
So to get us started, let's start with you, Lance. Just tell us a little bit about where you grew up and your family growing up, as well as your own family today.
Okay. I grew up it was like a 50-50 thing. I grew up in Mainville, Ohio on a road called Davis Road. It's like right across the street from the Little Miami River. I lived there until I was about 11, and then I moved to South Lebanon, Ohio, and I lived there until I was about 17, and then I moved back to that original house, actually, and I lived there in Mainville until I moved out on my own at 18, 19 years old, and currently I live in Westchester, like you stated. And sorry, I live in Westchester, as
and Lance
stated.
is the father of five children. So if any of those kids make a cameo appearance, we'll all be grateful and happy to get to meet his kids.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Same for you too, Jason, and me too.
But I currently, as far as my family goes, most of my family, not talking about my wife and my children, but most of my family are passed away. I got my mom, my dad, and my grandma and my sister left. And then my house family, I guess you could call. I've got five children ranging from 11 years old to 3 years old. And I've got my wife, who I have been with for 17 years. And she's absolutely awesome. She's helped me through a lot. She makes me who I am and makes me who I want to be.
Awesome. Lance, just give us a snapshot of what you do for work and what you've done in terms of work, your work history.
Currently, I am a utility locator. So for the ones that don't know what that means, if any digging at all is going to be done, I come out and I locate the underground utilities. That would be electric, gas, and communications. I'll locate that for them so that way they don't hit it when they're digging. I'm sure some people have heard of 811. And then as far as prior work history, before this, I was a mechanic for about 4 years. I worked for a couple different companies. And then before that, I wasn't really in a trade per se. I did a lot of manufacturing and warehouse work. I was anything from a packer to a forklift driver to an assembler to a picker. So I've got experience in warehouses. I know what it's like to work in those. But a lot of my jobs were through temp agencies back then, with the warehouse jobs. So I know how that work environment is.
Great. And Jason, how about you? Tell us about where you grew up and your family growing up, as well as your own family today.
Hi, guys. I grew up in Hamilton, Ohio, and Fairfield, Ohio. I lived a little bit of everywhere. Forest Park, North College Hill, Cincinnati area. I met my wife. She has lived in Mason most of all of her life, and she introduced me to Mason in the Kings area. And we was married and together over 21 years. She recently passed last year. And we bought a house out here in South Lebanon. I've lived here for going on 7 years now. I have 3 boys who live with me, and I'm a stay-home dad now. I've had numerous of jobs, everything from waterproofing basement, foundation work, to I've been a landlord. I've owned 4 homes, and I go in and remodel them and rent them out for a while, and worked a lot of factory jobs. Yeah, mostly factory jobs, but I've touched base on a lot of jobs. I've done a lot of things, a lot with that comes to home repair and remodeling. So I have a vast job array.
And Jason, tell us about your, you've got a unique kind of family background. Tell us about that, about your family growing up.
Okay. On my mom's side, they were Irish immigrants who were coal miners in Harlan, Kentucky. Dedicated Republicans, and they had later moved to Ohio. And that area at the time was known as the Knob, and I guess they called it Turkey Knob because it was like a turkey farm up there. So that's been the main influence on my life until as I hit my teen years and everything, and started getting out into the world and seeing different points of views and everything like that. So I've had a lower middle class type of upbringing, the working man, type of upbringing.
Mm-hmm. And I think you said before that you grew up in Hamilton, which was a mostly white town. Is that right?
Oh yeah. At the time, it was vastly different than what it was now. It was I don't know if I should say hillbillies, but it was basically we were all hillbillies up on the hill, and a lot of it would be they raised turkeys up there, but it was a good old boys network. Some really actually nice people that were just your average, poor working class group of people. It can be a little rough, It was definitely not a silver spoon. It was more, everybody was pretty poor.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, for a long time, I would say over the last 20 years ago, some people were still using outhouses up there.
So what was that? You're a black man. So what was that like for you growing up in a black man in an overwhelmingly white city?
Well, to be honest, me and my brother was the only black guys that were ever allowed up there. We grew up there as children. At that time, it was very racial, which it was a different world back then. I'm 42 years old, so if black people were up there, they were ran off of that area. Not only by people that lived there, but by the police too. I mean, yeah, I believe there was even a few maybe hangings that had happened back in the day up there. There was it was a rough time. I got jumped a lot, but after the years go by, people get to know you, and some of those same people that hated me at first actually become to love me, and we become great friends. It's just a matter of, when you're raised a certain way, that's all you know. So fear, dominates until you actually get to know somebody, and then you realize, oh, okay, they're no real different from me. So there was places that, yeah, I really didn't want to go because, back then it was kind of some clan affiliation and stuff going on. It was rough, but it's hard to explain. It was rough, but I felt like family too, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, and maybe we can go more into that during our conversation too. Lance, want to go to you. So tell us, what life experiences would you say have shaped what are some life experiences that have shaped your political views?
I grew up with my father working very hard. Sorry about that. I grew up with my father working very hard. The man never took a break. So I just seen him working hard for what we had. So I just developed the belief of, if you want something, you work hard for it. And nothing's free, nothing's handed to you. Also, growing up, like I said, I lived like your classic American childhood. Playing out in the woods, finding bugs and turtles and snakes, and eating cereal on Saturday morning, watching cartoons. But I'm sorry.
No, you're good. We understand, Lance. It's what happens when you're a father of 5.
But anyway, sorry about that. But and then, like I said, growing up, just the friends that I would hang out with and stuff like that. Just like going to their houses and stuff like that, like overhearing their parents' political opinions and stuff. And like I said, I never really got political until I was about 18, 19 years old. I'm 30 now, but it was right after Obama's first term ended. I got into politics and stuff like that because I didn't care. I started paying attention to what Obama was doing. And for me personally, I didn't care for what he was doing. So I got into politics. And again, it was just kind of, I had some basic all-American foundation installed in me when I was younger. Like I said, I love and respect this country. I've never served in the military, but I respect those that do with the utmost honor and respect. But I actually wanted to serve, but I hurt my back when I was 16 and no branch would take me. But I would still currently, I would die for this country. I love this country that much. And like I said, my grandfather was a Marine. My other grandfather was a firefighter for Cincinnati, or Silverton. And then my grandfather that was a Marine was also a Reading police officer for years. And like I said, I love America, and that's what shaped my political views pretty much. Anything for the good of America. And I am a Republican, but I also consider myself a constitutionalist. Anything that goes against the Constitution, I don't like. And that's also helped shape my political views.
Yeah, and say more about, how would you describe your political views? So Republican, constitutionalist, say more about that. And for instance, who did you vote for in the 2020 presidential election and why?
I voted for Donald Trump because I liked what he was doing with this country. I think I liked what turned me on to him in the first place, back when he first ran in 2016, was he wasn't a politician. He was just the American businessman. Like, yes, he's had his downfalls and his upbringings and stuff like that, but what human being doesn't? But anyway, I just really liked what he was doing with this country. I loved how it was America first. And he held other countries accountable for what they were doing. And like countries that we had trade deals with and stuff that were just ripping us off, he put an end to that, or was at least trying to put an end to that. Energy wise, he was trying to make us independent. He was stopping illegal immigrants from, or reducing the number, not stopping, reducing the number of illegal immigrants coming into this country, which on that subject, which I won't get into it, I don't mind immigration at all. I think we're the best country in the world. Why wouldn't you want to be here? I just think that you should do it legally. But like I said, I just really like Donald Trump. And yes, he's rash and rough around the edges and stuff like that. But to me, he's a real person. You know, like I said, he's a billionaire. He's got money and things that a normal everyday person doesn't have. But I just believe that he wanted everybody, no matter where you're from, what country you're from, what city you're from, what color your skin is, or who you love, he wanted everybody to live the American dream.
And Lance, so you and I go back a couple of years from being neighbors, Lance. I remember, I think one of the first conversations that we ever had with each other was Trump he had just entered the presidential race, and it was, there was a Republican primary. And you had this was initially way back, you had your concerns about Trump.
I did.
Back then.
I did. I did initially have my concerns about him because they got me a tiny bit. I think when he first started running, that's when they saw him as a threat. And by they, I mean the establishment. They saw him as a threat, and that's when they started their slander. And they got me to bite a little bit. But I did have my eye at that time, I believe, on Ted Cruz.
What were your concerns about Trump? Just to name a couple.
Just the basic things. It was his mouth at that point. It was how rash he was and stuff like that. It's just how he kind of he comes off as he talks down to people. But I honestly believe that Donald Trump is a different man now than he was then. He doesn't, I don't think he says what he means. He says what's on his mind, which I respect that to any man that says that, or does that. I mean, but back then, like I said, he still had the super rash businessman personality, like the pushover personality, which he still kind of has it. I'm not denying that. But he gets stuff done. But like I said, it was just that silly stuff. But I mean, if you really think about it, the leaders of your business or the company that you work for or the people that make the big bucks and that are in charge, they're not always the nicest people. They don't always say the nicest things, but they know how to get stuff done. And that's why they're in the position that they're in.
So, Jason, I want to go to you. What life experiences have shaped your political views? And how would you describe your political views?
Okay. In the beginning of the life, I'd have to say my grandmother, she was a Ronald Reagan Republican. So now we have to understand the Republican Party has vastly changed. It's not what it used to be. But I've always been more libertarian leaning in the beginning, and I voted for George Bush twice. I voted for Bill Clinton. I've always been for whatever party that I felt was more helpful for me. And so I've always voted either way. I've been mostly independent. I've never held a staunch, I have to be this. You know what I mean? I've never been I'm either Democrat or I'm Republican. It was always whatever I felt was for the people. It would help us, because we were poor. What would help us? So now, now I find myself more independent, progressive, because like I said, with everything else, as you gain knowledge and see, let me start with during Obama's presidency, I used to listen to all Fox News and all the networks, and that's what it was. And it wasn't until Obama ran for president that I seen a shift in the Republican Party, and it made me really start digging in and seeing that they was implementing that was what's known as the Southern strategy. And it really turned me off on them because in the beginning, when Trump was running, I like what Trump was saying because he actually came out when he very first ran. He was very progressive. He talked about bringing jobs back and all of that. But then what really turned me off is how he basically would use race baiting to divide. And when that started taking off, and I seen that he embraced that part, and then coming out and seeing who endorsed him, like David Dukes and everything, I just seen a bigger divide coming from, from Trump and the Republican Party that just totally turned me off of him. So, and the Democrats are really the same. That they upset me when Hillary Clinton was running against Bernie Sanders, because they cheated Bernie Sanders. Because Bernie Sanders is for the people. He's always has been. He's never changed his political views. It's always been for the working class person and the poor. And when I seen both of them, that's what really solidified my independence from either party. I realized that they're both crooked. And then as I started doing research, and then I realized that there's corporate Democrats and then there's corporate Republicans. The only really difference is on the Democratic side, they have progressives, which are for the poor and the working class people. And on the Republican, it's all corporate. The only real difference in the Republican side is you have Trumpism now, and you have the corporate Republicans. That's basically the two only difference.
So you initially, Jason, you were kind of intrigued by Trump in the very beginning.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, if you remember in his platform, I mean, he had progressive policies. He was, you know what I mean? He was, everything he said was like it was going to be for the working class people and everything. I had doubts on some of it, but I thought, at first I thought, man, if he goes in there and he sticks to this, he had the opportunity to be a great president. I really believe that. But, because it wasn't until I seen that he was going with the Republican platform, and I seen the direction he was going in, and I didn't like it. I didn't feel safe. I'll just be honest with it. I didn't feel safe. I didn't think it would be beneficial to my family. I felt like we was going back to what the Democrats used to be in the 60s. I could see that switch over. Does that make sense?
Was there like a specific kind of moment when you thought to yourself, I'm intrigued by him, but no, I can't support him? Was there a specific example or thing that happened that really clarified your view on that?
Yeah, I would have to honestly say probably when he had troubles denouncing white supremacy, and when he would use in his speeches, he would use like old Confederate Democrats talking points. He would regurgitate lines for separatism and stuff. You know what I mean? Like the base he was trying to pull from. I was like, whoa, this isn't a good spot to go. And the slogans he used was like some old Klan slogans. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, and then did you vote for Biden then in the 2020 presidential election?
Yes, I did vote. I did vote for Biden, unfortunately, because I didn't have the chance. They cheated Bernie once again out of the run.
What is your basic view of President Biden?
He's got some good policies going, like the HR 1, but he's a corporate Democrat. The problem with everything is the corporations and the billionaires are in charge of our country, and their greed is destroying us. Our middle class and our middle class is becoming working poor, and that's just a continuation of that. Even the members who he puts in his cabinets and everything is like the same as Trump. You don't take people from Goldman Sachs. You don't take people from corporations and put them in the place of people's to do the people's work for the people and expect a different outcome. It just isn't going to happen. So we're still beholden to Wall Street executives. Big banks now are still running the show. And sadly, I mean, yes, we're getting some social economic changes. It's just like a little finite around the edges, but it's no structure that's really going to change the working class for the working class people and the working poor, unfortunately. And so,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
So Lance, I want to let you just briefly respond. I saw you I think you wanted, when Jason was talking about Trump and how he was intrigued by Trump, but then decided that he couldn't vote for him. I saw that you were kind of shaking your head, and I imagine that you have some, because in your view, Trump is for everyone. So I just go ahead and feel free to respond to anything that Jason said, and then I want to turn the conversation to, but for both of you, your assessment about the state of the working class in America today, and highlight and see where you are thinking about that. But Lance, go ahead and any reactions or responses to what Jason said.
Like I said, he's got his own opinions, and that's great, and that's what America's all about. But like, when it comes to Trump and the race thing, I think it's complete and utter bull crap. Has the man said some things that were a little bit racial? Yes. But who hasn't? I challenge you, not dare. I challenge you to find one person in this whole country that's never had a prejudiced thought or said something that's kind of racy and either didn't mean it or did mean it or something like that. It doesn't mean you're racist. I mean, I'm sure you've heard racist jokes. I'm sure but they're jokes. I'm not saying Trump's telling jokes. I'm just saying, like, things are said sometimes. But like I said, I don't believe that Trump's a racist. I don't believe that at all. Before he was president, he received an award and took a picture. I believe it was Rosa Parks and Muhammad Ali. He's received things with Oprah. He's done all these things. I don't know this. This is a fact, but I don't know the specific details on it because I read it a long time ago. But Trump, I want to say it was back in the 80s, owned a nightclub, and I want to say it was Miami. And at this time in that area, nightclubs would not allow Black people or Jewish people into their nightclubs. Trump had the only nightclub that would allow Jews and Blacks. So back then, I don't think he was racist. You also got to think about the era that his father was raised in. So he's probably heard something, like I said, hatred is taught. You're not born with it. But anyway,
so you and Jason clearly, I mean, you view this differently, right? Your view on Trump and race there's a strong difference here.
Yeah, and Trump,
go ahead, Lance, and then I'll let you, Jason, respond briefly. Go ahead, Lance.
Okay.
Sorry about that, Jason.
Oh, you're fine, brother.
But Trump, I'm pretty sure it was doubled the Black college fund that even Obama wouldn't give that much funding to. Trump has done a lot for young Black people. And like I said, I just don't believe the race thing. I think that's just all vile crap that the news puts out. Like I said,
okay. Sorry, last word on that, Lance, and then I want to hear from Jason on that.
Oh, okay. No, I was just gonna say I just don't see it, and then unless Jason, you can give me a example of which maybe it's just something I haven't seen. Could you give me an example on how Trump used race to create violence or division? In my personal view, I think Obama was the one that started doing that.
All right. So now, Jason, I'll let you respond. I do want you to respond. And sorry, we could spend the rest of this conversation talking about this, but I want to let you respond, and then I want to ask you, Jason, about your assessment of the state of the working class today. But go ahead and respond to that, Jason, briefly.
Okay. Well, let me make something clear. I never said Trump was a racist. I don't believe that he's a racist to his core in the sense that you're thinking, because his daughter married a Jewish guy. He would have never allowed his daughter to marry a Jewish guy if it wasn't that. Trump is an opportunist. And what I said was, I didn't like the race baiting he used. Like, he was one of the strongest, staunch people that called Obama un-American and a Kenyan, knowing good and well that he was an American. He denounced that, and all that was to feed into the base, and just like talking about, take America back again. That's just why America is losing its spot, which I said was what the Republicans were pushing.
Hey, Jason, for some reason we lost your audio there for a little bit. So yeah, reconnect with your audio there. Go ahead and speak again.
Can you hear me?
Yeah,
good?
there we go. That's better.
Okay. I'm not sure what part you kicked off, so I'll just kind of say it again. I said Trump, when the Republicans, the strategy they was using was the Southern strategy. And when Trump went into that, he embraced that. He could have went a different way about it. And that's what turned me off on it, is that he embraced that. He went in with the, Obama's not an American, feeding off of that. And then he wouldn't, when there's white supremacy things going on, he wouldn't straight up denounce it. He would say different things like there's good people on both sides. He just, in the words and the things he would use was old Southern racist things. And the reason why that's a problem for me is because I grew up in a different era. And when you're talking about like taking us back to that, and you're trying to make, using that as a divide, that comes to a risk from I understand why you don't see it as that big deal, and it to you, it seems like, he may have just said some things, but those actually have actions for people like me. And a prime example, when you ask for a prime example, I mean, white supremacy is at an all-time high than it's ever been. Just look at the statistics. There's more race crimes going on now. And I agree with you. It started under Obama. Yes, you're correct there, but that's because that's what the Republicans pushed. They used Obama as fear, like, we're losing America to the black man. We're losing America. They always said on Fox News that we're going to be, here in the next 5 to 10 years, we're going to be the minority. I know you've heard that. Everybody's heard that. When in fact, there's only 44 million black people in America. 44 million black people. There's over 300 million white people. You're not in the minority. You're never going to be in a minority. But those are racist tropes used to incite fear. And when you incite fear in people and they think they're losing something, and then you come in as the president and you reinforce that, that has real world consequences. So there was no way I could have supported that. Now, he could have went a different way about it, and he chose not to. So I could never support something that could put me or my family in danger. Because I grew up in that era.
I want to acknowledge, and let's just honor the fact that there's a strong difference here between the two of you and how you view this in regards to Trump. So let's note that, let's honor that difference. I want to now ask you, Jason, about what is your assessment of the state of the working class in America today? Overall, in your view and your experience, how are working people doing in America today?
Oh, man. Can you hear me?
Yeah, go for it, Jason. Looks like Jason is getting his audio. Lance, let's go. Jason, while you get your audio worked out, Lance, let me ask you that. What is your assessment about the state of the working class in America today? For instance, would you say that, things have gotten easier or harder for working in middle-class families since when you were a child? What's your overall assessment of, kind of based on your experiences, observations? How are working people doing today in America?
Today in America, I think it was going pretty good from 2016 to 2020, but I think it's heading in a bad direction, because, like I said, tax rates are going up, the cost of living is going up. I mean, that's what really affects the working class, is the cost of living and taxes. But the way I view it right now is I think we're on the start of a decline.
Do you feel that politicians are representing working class and ordinary people well or not well?
On either side, no, I don't think the Republicans or the Democrats are representing the working class people very well. I think there might be maybe one or two, but I think their voices are drowned out by all the other ones. Because I mean, if any of them, the ones that truly do care, they're defiled as soon as they say something. Like, people slander them and stuff like that. But no, I don't think anybody, no politician cares about us. We're the little people. We're their puppets. We're here for their gain.
Working people are the puppets of politicians. You're there for their gain. And you would include Republican politicians in that category.
Yeah, none of them truly care about me or you, or, I mean, even the ones that do. Okay, say for instance, like on the Democratic side, I can't even say just the Democratic side. It's Republican side too. I mean, I think it's more partial to the Democratic side, but there are ones on the right that do it too. But even if they are saying that we need to help poor people, and we need to help Black people, we need to help Jewish people, and we need to help no matter what type of person, gay people, straight people, it doesn't matter. They pander for support. It's not that they really care. They're saying, here, take this tax cut, or here, take this extra government check, or take this, and then remember that next time I need your support. Like, it's not like they truly care. I've never seen a politician out on the side of the street picking up trash or going door to door saying and asking like normal everyday people that live in hollers or ghettos or anything like that, personally asking them, hey, what is going to help you and your family succeed in life? What is going to make things better for you? So no, I don't think any of them care.
And let me ask you that, Lance. What do you think would help working people like you and your family and families like yours? What would, if a politician, would be out in your neighborhood there and would stop by and knock on your door and ask you that, how would you respond?
Well, one thing that would help my life is I'd tell them to get the government out of my business. But it's the cost of living. The cost of living is going to, now I understand there's supply and demand and inflation and stuff like that. Like, the price of things go up, but the reason the prices of things go up is because of taxes. So just for example, just a made up company. So you've got Bill's company, and he's a corporation. He employs so many people. Say he employs 10 people. All of a sudden, that corporation starts getting taxed higher. He's going to not pay his employees as much. So either half of them are going to quit, or he's not going to just pay them as much. And then he's going to raise the cost of his goods to compensate for his taxes. And then the people that in that area that aren't making as much now can't really afford the stuff that he's selling. So it's like I said, it's a matter of how things are priced. Like, there's no reason to pay $3.80 for a gallon of milk, when the average person, I would say, this isn't a true statistic, this is just my guess, I'd say the average person, middle class person in America, probably makes $10 to $12 an hour, $10 to $13 an hour. And if you have kids into that, a car payment, a house payment, or rent, or stuff like that, it just makes things very hard to afford.
Yeah, so things are hard to afford, and in your experience there, and your feeling, there's just not hardly any politicians paying serious attention to the lived experience of families like yours.
No, I mean, for instance, like Nancy Pelosi with her $20,000 fridge eating freaking $24 a carton ice cream. Why would she care about me? Why would she care anything about me and my 5 kids in the trailer that I live in? Which is a nice trailer, by the way.
And if I'm not mistaken, you own the trailer.
I do. it's a place to call home. And that's all that matters to me.
Jason, I want to ask you, go back to you. What is your assessment of the state of the working class in America today? Jason, for some reason we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now? Maybe I'm covering up. I'm trying to hold it up. Maybe my
There you go.
hand.
Now we can hear you. Go for
You
it.
can hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. The working class is becoming a working poor. It's eroding away. And what's happened is we can take it all the way back to the Ronald Reagan trickle down economics. The money never trickles down. It always has come from the bottom up. And that's one of the main problems. We've been doing this experiment for 50 years now, and you see the mess that we're in from it. There's been key legislation from our politicians because they're bought and paid. You know, they pass legislation and write laws that benefit the rich and the corporations. So everything is the working class. Unfortunately, if things don't change, they'll soon. The wealth gap is astronomical. This isn't just opinions. I mean, we can actually look over there's a structure that's been put in place by legislation, and we need to recognize that. And we need to come together, and we have to change these things. It's like Citizens United. That was a Supreme Court case that granted corporations and nonprofits unlimited spending power. They can spend as much money as they want. I mean, anybody that wouldn't think that you can spend as much money as you want to politicians and they're not going to be bought, that's just madness. And another thing that drives me crazy is we have all these senators. They buy stocks in these companies. Of course, they write laws to benefit the stockholders in the companies. The game is rigged. It's been rigged for a very long time now, and we have to understand that. Everything, just like even with the housing crisis. It's awful funny how in our years when we grew up, I remember a home could be lived in and a family could be raised off of just the father's income. Not saying that, it should just be fathers. I mean, fathers or mothers, but it could basically be ran off of one family member's while the other family member could raise the kids. Now it takes two and sometimes three just to live in today's time. And the reason of that is because everything's went up, but except pay hasn't went up. There's a reason why the pharmaceutical companies can't bargain with America. They sent their lobbyists in to have legislation written to where America can't even negotiate fair prices on medications that we pay for with our tax dollars. It's insane. We give so much corporate welfare, and then they use social to fight and have and get. But we pay all these corporations millions and billions of dollars in our taxes, and it's crazy. It's just mind-boggling to me, and I just don't understand how people don't see this and see this as the problem.
Lance, I want to ask you about something that Jason just said. Jason, one of the things that Jason said is that the game is rigged. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I do. I think it's rigged in a I'm trying to find the words. In a sense, I agree with what he's saying. It's the rich trying to get richer. Like, it's just never enough for them. So yes, I like politics is rigged. Like, legitimate career politicians, the whole thing is rigged. Because I think we're moving towards a bad type of government. They're trying to get rid of a democracy. Democracy is dying, which is a shame. Because we, the people, are supposed to preserve that. I mean, really, that's what the government was there for. But even the founding fathers knew that wasn't going to work, so that's why they wrote the Constitution. But yeah, it's all a money game. It's how much money can I make off of this person? There's price tags everywhere to them. And when it comes to the people, that's why they divide us with race and income and stuff. Like, I truly do believe, why can't we just love one another? And why can't we just care for one another? Why do we have to see black, white, gay, straight, fat, skinny? Why do we got to put names to a lot of things? Because it divides. It's just something they worked into the system to help divide us. Sorry, I'm diverting from the question, but yeah, like I say, it's just they divide us. They use words and titles and financial statuses and stuff to pit people against each other and make it a competition, when I've never been mad at a single person for having something I didn't. I'm happy that I would never wish harm or a bad time to somebody. Like, if you got something that I don't have, good for you, man. Like, I'm super happy for you. But that's not how people see it anymore. They just see it as, I want to be better than this person, or I'm white, I can't be friends with a black man, or I'm black, I can't be friends with a white man, or I'm a straight manly man, I can't be friends with a gay guy because that makes me gay by association. That's not how none of that stuff works. It's just we're human beings with feelings and thoughts. And personally, I don't give a rat's ass how much money you make. I mean, I'm going to assume that you work for it, or you got a pretty good job, or you got a degree to do that job. That's great for you. But yeah, the government's not doing anything but dividing us in every way that they can, so that we're busy squabbling and hollering at each other, and they're trying to get us to tear ourselves apart from the inside out. They're trying to crack the foundation, which they're succeeding, unfortunately. They're cracking the foundation so the house can fall, so they can be there to be our saviors and be like, don't worry, the government is here. We're going to save you. We're going to help you. We're going to take care of you. And then that's when your rights get stripped instantly.
Lance, when you're saying they are dividing us, is the they politicians that you're referring to? The government?
Yeah, the politicians, the government, Big Brother, however you want to put it.
Jason, what's your response to that? Do you agree with that? Disagree? The idea that they're dividing us as people.
Well, absolutely. Yes, of course, I agree with what you said there. The problem is, we are no longer a capital. It's an oligarchy. And we need to understand that those social views, put it this way, like what he's saying, the social views they use to divide us, they trick a lot of people by acting as if that's patriotism. When it's, they're saying like that. If we was in a capitalist country, there's no way a bank is too big to fail. Okay. What is a capitalist country? You either make it or you don't. Your business gets shut down, and then someone else comes along, buys your business, and it goes on. But no, we no longer do that. We keep. Let me give a little example using this COVID. Explain. I would like him to explain to me, what sense does this make? How do we bail out multi-billion-dollar companies with $1 trillion in bailouts for COVID, and then they argue about $1,400 checks for the people? Now, how is it that they can expect a company that's worth $100 billion, they can't fail, they can't go out of business, they can't make it, they'll give them trillions of dollars, but they expect us as the working class, who most of the middle class work paycheck to paycheck, unfortunately. How do they expect them to make it? Where does that ideology come from? And that's what I'm talking about, how the game is rigged. We live in a socialist country. It's just socialist for the rich, and it's rugged individualism for the middle class and poor. And until people understand that, they use those words to scare people, like, oh, we're going into a socialist country. Oh, we got to, stand for your flag, be patriotic. Those are all just tricks. It's a trick. We live in an oligarchy. And unfortunately, those tricks work. They rather rouse somebody up to think that you're a patriot. And, another thing, like Mitch McConnell, one of the richest senators, like with Nancy Pelosi in the Senate. How is it that he was the head of the state. How is it one of the richest men, head of the state, has the poorest state and the state that's on the most welfare out of all 50 states, Kentucky? How does that mesh? That makes absolutely no sense. But then you'll take Mitch McConnell, okay, his which is a red state, and it gets more social welfare than everywhere. But then they'll come on and they'll use a race hypertrope, like they'll say, you know, welfare queens, knowing that that provokes in a lot of people's minds, black people on welfare living off the system, when, you know, that's a tactic they use to divide when there's more white people on welfare than black people because the statistic numbers are higher. But they'll use that as a wedge, like, oh, these people over here are getting something that you're not getting. When in all actuality, it's spread the same if you want to count it in numbers. Am I making sense?
Yeah, you are making sense. And I want to ask you about something, Jason. You, my wife, Amber Lapp, she interviewed you back in November of last year for an article she wrote for an organization called American Compass. And I want to read you something that you said in that piece. You said, "Mark my words, we are going to civil unrest. It's going to be a class scenario. It's going to be rich and it's going to be poor until we have a revolution, which I believe a revolution is coming." End quote. What do you mean by that? What do you mean by that? That we're going to have a revolution and that it's going to be a class scenario. It's going to be rich and it's going to be poor.
It's inevitable. And the reason why I say that is because, like I was saying, you know, this isn't our opinions about about if we think the middle class is eroding away. The wealth gap is real. The numbers are in, and there's no sign of it stopping. The only man that was scared, that could have made something happen, was Bernie Sanders. They were so scared until somebody like Bernie Sanders gets in there and actually comes in and changes things. They're not going to give up the money. They're not giving up their tax cuts. They're not giving up the George Bush tax cuts. They're not giving up the Trump tax cuts. They're wanting to cut Social Security and Medicaid. And when they do that, it may tend to, I believe it's going to be a violent revolution mix. It's going to be messy. I don't want to just say it's going to be messy. And it is going to be the rich against the poor, because you can only take so much for so long before the people come up and stand up. And, you know, and as our history shows, unfortunately, America, we're not too good at preventive measures. It's not until a crisis happens, then we react to it. So unfortunately, I think until it's like something massive happens, like I don't know, like in what way, but until once the people come together, which they don't want, they're going to have to suppress the people. And then when they go to suppress the people, it's going to get violent.
So you're imagining, unless something is done to address what you've described as the wealth gap, you see, would you call it a working class revolution? What would you call it?
Yes, I would call it a working class revolution. You see it on both sides, and that's the crazy thing about it. You see it on the Republican side and on the Democratic side. The social unrest is real. It's just manifested in two different ways because of all the lies in between. You know, like let me try to say it like this. You had the Tea Party, okay, that was in there for the right side. All the people that feel like they're going out in their army fatigues, militias, and all that. What happens when they join together with Black Lives Matter and other protesting groups? Could you imagine? It's easy to suppress either one of those groups one-on-one, but if those two groups came together, it would be a change that's unsustainable. You're not just going to jump. I mean, we have to acknowledge that both groups get treated different when they protest. Would you agree?
I'll let Lance respond.
Okay, yeah.
I'll let Lance respond to that. But just to clarify, Jason, are you proposing that the Tea Party and Black Lives Matter join forces?
Yes, because the problem is they have it's all the same. Everybody wants the same thing. We want jobs and opportunities, and it's not out there, and it's not going to be out there because the system's rigged. And until somebody goes in and changes the system, first you got to get money out of politics. Because as long as our politicians stay bought and paid for, they're always going to go for the money. They're always going to go for the money. We need to reverse Citizens United. We need to put in that We the People amendment. Okay, we need to this HR1. We need to enact that. But you have it, and it was, I believe we talked once before. It was the Koch brothers, which is a right wing, a pact or whatever that they do they run tests and things for the Republicans, and they found out that no matter what, everybody likes HR1 on Democrats and Republicans side, and that's a bill that they just said, you know what, crush it. So if the Senate and the House are going to just keep crushing the will of the people, how long can that go on before people realize, you know what, it don't matter if a Republican's in or a Democrat, it's the rich corporations and the millionaires are got their foot on our neck. It's just a matter of time.
Lance, go ahead, and I want to ask you to respond. What are your thoughts on this idea of a working class revolution that he's describing?
Yeah, I think a revolution is needed. I mean, because these politicians they're not listening to us. They don't care. And some of them pretend to listen. Some of them plug their ears and don't want to hear it. But yeah, I mean, I think something drastic will have to happen eventually to be heard if we're going to stop the path that we're on. I don't think it's going to be an easy one. I don't know a specific way that it would go. I'm sure violence would be involved, which is a shame. Nobody's got to get hurt, but at the same time, that's the point we're getting to. But yeah, I agree. I think a revolution needs to happen to reset things. But at the same time, I don't really like to use the word reset. But yeah, I agree that it's coming eventually. I mean, it could be 20 years from now. It could be 40 years from now. It could be a month from now. I mean, I don't really know, but I feel that it's inevitable.
And you feel that there will be there will be violence?
I mean, yeah. I mean, there's violence anywhere you go. I mean, when it comes to that stuff. I mean, back to what Jason was saying about BLM and then the Tea Party. There's groups on both sides of the spectrum, right and left, or whatever you want to call it, that I don't agree with. Do I agree with the statement that Black Lives Matter? Yes, I do, very much, 100%. Do I agree with the group? Absolutely not. Do I agree with white supremacist groups out there? How this is my view on it. How can a race, no matter what race it is, it could be the Asian race, how can you say that you are superior to any other race because of your skin color? Like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, what, hey, Jason, what makes me, how am I better than you because I'm white? Can you think of any way?
No, I can't. And, since I'm half Irish, I really don't see it.
Right. And I'm not saying that, and you're not better than me because you're black or half black or whatever you may be.
Right.
So when it comes to hate groups or racist groups, no matter what they are, I believe that BLM, I believe that it was started for a good reason, but it went rogue. It went off in a bad direction. They got some members that just did some bad things, because when a black group is killing black people and messing up black stores and stuff, like I saw some videos of these black store owners in these cities. Like, I don't know the guy's name. He was an older black man. He was sobbing. He was absolutely heartbroken. He put everything he had into opening that business and running that business, and that's what his livelihood was. And BLM, and I'm sure Antifa was a part of it too. but went in there and destroyed his store and just destroyed it. Like, he couldn't even reopen it. He didn't have the insurance policy to be able to reopen his store. And like, that was heartbreaking to me. Like, how are you going to go do that? Like, and then the BLM, and I'm not saying that there aren't white groups that do this to black people, but BLM was beating the crap out of white people for simply being white. Like, that is racism. And then I don't like it when white groups are doing that to black people. Like, it's like, I just don't. But as far as like what I'm reverting to is, if, yes, what Jason was saying, if we can just get those bullcrap differences that we were fed out of our heads and actually come together, we the people could destroy the establishment and get things the way the founding fathers intended them to be. Like, the founding fathers were light years ahead of their time when it came to what this country was supposed to be. And it's just, they're tearing, it goes back to the classic saying, together we stand, divided we fall. They're dividing us so that we can fall.
So I wish we had another hour to go into all of this.
Right.
We got to start wrapping it up here. But I want to ask you, as we start to close our time here, I want to ask you both this question. So Braver Angels is a citizens organization with the mission of bridging the partisan divide. We're trying to bring conservatives and progressives together to get to know each other, like we are in this call here, to understand our differences, and to find ways to work together for the good of our country. My question for you both is, the working class revolution that you both foresee, would this mostly help or hurt the mission of Braver Angels? Will it make it easier or harder for Braver Angels to accomplish the goal of bringing conservatives and progressives together, to work together, to get to know each other, understand our differences, find common ground? Easier or harder, this working class revolution?
I mean, if I may go first, I think it just depends on how it goes. If say, for instance, there was a revolution and it was stopped in any way, or the people, I'll just say the people, as in like the general people of America, were defeated, I think it would make things worse, because there'd be a lot of blame back and forth between people about, it's your fault that this didn't work, it's your fault that this didn't work. And ultimately, I think the government would have even more power at that point, because something like that was tried. If we were successful and we did somehow overthrow the corrupt government and reestablished a true fair government, I think it would be better, because everybody would be at some type of peace.
Jason, what's your take on that question that I asked?
You said, do I see if Braver Angels would help or be hurt after the revolution?
Yeah, the question is, this working class revolution that you're both describing, violent or not, would it help or hurt the mission of bridging the partisan divide, bringing conservatives and progressives together to get to know each other, understand our differences, and work together for the good of our country?
Let me reframe it a little bit. You need it before the revolution. It's good you're starting it now, because it can help and direct the way the revolution is going to come. Once the revolution comes, it doesn't matter anything about after the revolution. It's too late then. Right now is a great time for it, because it can help. And what it can do is it can bridge that divide and showing everybody how we are all the same, going for the same cause and trying to bring an equilibrium to the justice. It gives people the opportunity to learn the truth. Okay, it gives them the opportunity to see what's behind the like, for example, these news networks are programmed to be pro-corporate. What I like about I don't know if you call it the network, but what I like about what you guys are doing is, like, if, for example, if someone who watches Fox News is never going to listen to MSNBC, someone who watches MSNBC isn't going to listen to Fox News. What I like is you are right in the middle, and you can give people the opportunity, because it's neither right or left. You give them the opportunity to look at the politics from a standard of let's see commonality on the policies. You know what I'm saying? So it's not like, oh, we're coming from a right-wing policy or a left-wing policy. Let's look at the policies. Let's talk about them, see what we like about them and what we don't like about them. I like it because it's kind of like neutral. It gives that chance of, here's what you think, here's what I think. Let's dive into, which if you get there, I don't know, I haven't followed, but if you get into, well, let's dive into the policies, and then, you know what I mean? That brings forth the truth, because that's one of the problems.
Oh, you covered up your audio again, Jason.
Well,
there you go.
What I like is it gives that opportunity to see what the policies are, and like from the networks, they spin a narrative. Like, for example, what he was saying about BLM, he's getting a narrative from Fox News, so they have an agenda. Your network isn't an agenda. It's like, let's bring you together. Let's bring you together from different spectrums. Let's talk about it. And then we can dive into the policies about it or whatnot and see what's actually good for the people if we have common ground about it. And by doing that, that divulges the knowledge. So there's not a turnoff. You know what I mean? It's not like, oh, that's right wing or that's left wing.
Well, and any one of you feel free to respond to this. Do you think it's possible that, so you're talking about divide between sometimes you referred to the people, I guess you could be middle class, working people, working poor, versus the government or elites. Sometimes I think Lance, you said the corrupt government, and Jason, you might have, and I'm not sure how you would refer to it, but is there any way that you think that this divide between working people, middle class people, and the top or the government, is there any way that that could be resolved peacefully?
No, not really. I mean, not unless they don't listen. They, as in the government, they don't listen to peaceful protests anymore. Like, we can't stand out in the street with signs like everybody saying, no, we're not, if you don't listen to us, we're not going to pay our taxes. We're not paying taxes until you listen to, they don't care. They'll just jail us and stuff like that. Like, it's just, they don't listen to that stuff. So I honestly don't have an exact answer for you on what would need to happen, but I don't see, which there could be a way out there. Maybe I just can't think of it, but I just don't see it being done peacefully.
Jason, I'm going to give you 30 seconds to respond to that. Do you see a peaceful way to resolve that conflict?
Yes, I actually do. And like with your group, it's great. It's just a matter of, informing the people, getting the knowledge out there on what's really going on. And, it's kind of like I could use Joe Rogan as an example. I know so many people that watch Joe Rogan that are, Republicans, Democrats, independents, libertarians, and they all love that show for one reason, because he comes in and when he has his podcast with the different people, and when they do talk about politics, it gets that awareness out there. It's like on level ground. He's not, and you do the same thing. He's not right wing. He's not left wing. He lets them come out and talk. And that's our problem. There's not enough platforms that, speak truth to power, we'll say. There's not enough that just puts it cut and dry, look at the politics of it, and let's see what the policies stand for. Because if we all go into the policies, we'll see where the policies go. And they go to the corporations and the millionaires and billionaires. And if we can get more platforms like yours out there in other places that have a lot of eyes, then the truth can be out there. But as long as it comes from a political view of, I'm a Democrat, I'm a Republican, that people's not open-minded. You need to be able to have them come in and open-minded. And then when you have enough people see it, you can have the change, because then you'll have people voting on the same priority. And that's the will of the people. And that's the problem now, because we have people who are putting people into office that shouldn't be in office. And,
Jason, we're going to have to leave it there. Okay. To wrap us up, I just want to ask you in a sentence or two this question, both of you. What are you taking away from our conversation today? And while you're thinking about that, let me just say that, you know, I hope that this is only part one of our conversation, Lance and Jason. And, you know, I think that the themes and the conflicts that you've surfaced in this conversation is really important. The conflict between, if you will, you know, the people or middle-class people and working people and the people who are, you know, leading our society and our government and the media and so forth. And this is a conflict that, you know, either, like you say, it's either going to be resolved peacefully or not. And so I would love to have more conversations about this. Listeners, we welcome your feedback, whether you're red, blue, or other. Send us an email, media@braverangels.org. Tell us what you thought about this conversation. But to close us out, just tell us in a sentence or two what you're taking away from our conversation today.
My takeaway is hope. I see it as hopeful. We have me, a Bernie supporter, and we have him as a Trump supporter that are actually pretty much eye to eye on the same things. We just have a little bit of different different beliefs on why we're there. But once we get into, maybe like you said, another episode, and we can dive in and find out why things are the way they are and get a little history on it, I have no doubt that we're coming together, because we're already together on 90% of it. The only difference is he watches the news networks he watches, or gets his information where he gets it from, and I get my information where I get it from.
All right. Thank you, Jason. Lance, what are you taking away from our conversation today?
That basically, like what he was saying. I mean, just narrate. I don't watch any news network because I think they're all full of crap. I don't watch the news. But anyway, like he said, that we are, like, for instance, if you just told a regular everyday person out there that you've got a Bernie supporter and a Trump supporter talking to each other, they would automatically assume it's a debate or a screaming match or you're an idiot match or stuff like that. But there are things that we, like he said, we agree on the foundation of our beliefs, but we have a policy difference. Like, we're just different on policy. That's all it is. But we have the same common goal. And that's my takeaway, is people need to realize that if you would actually get to know somebody that has an opposing view of you, that you probably do have a common goal. Not all of them. There are some extreme right-wing people that even I don't agree with. And there's some extreme left-wing people that nobody would agree with. But like I said, it's just, people do have common ground somewhere. You just have to dig for it.
All right. And that will be the last word for this podcast. Listeners, if you believe in what we're doing here at Braver Angels, I invite you to go to braverangels.org and become a member. Join us. That's all for today, folks. Until next time, let's go out there and build a house united.